Hey, what's up everybody? Danny here and welcome to the Neighbor's Kitchen. This here is my favorite cutting board. You may have seen it on a couple of my other videos as the background. What you may have not known was this has not always been a cutting board. I have a very deep passion for DIY projects far beyond just making things in the kitchen. I really like making things in my workshop. And actually, when I first met the wood that would eventually become this cutting board, it was my old flooring from this kitchen before I remodeled it. So when I saw that I had underneath some carpeting, that I had red oak hardwood flooring, I saved some aside and made this cutting board out of it. Unfortunately, a few years down the road, once it came back into the house, it warped a little bit because I guess that's just part of reclaiming wood. The following is actually footage that I took a year ago on how I took the bow out, and while I was at it, I gave it a few upgrades. I really enjoyed making this video. I hope you'll enjoy it yourself. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Enjoy the video. Well, here we go to a flashback of last year, probably sometime in January. And my old cutting board seems to be a bit of a tripod. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but that's less than ideal. Could promote slipping, and it's just not so good. So there's nothing left to do but take it into the shop and fix it up. So pretty sure I don't have to explain this, but we're gonna have to remove these feet. These wonderful little rubber feet that help it not slide across the countertops as I chop my onions and tomatoes and what have you. Actually, I believe I forgot to mention in the intro, the reason I did not just restore my red oak flooring was because it wasn't over the entire area. So there you go. Now, you might be wondering, why in the heck is Danny taking out a hot glue gun? I thought this was a woodworking project, not something for a craft show. Well, let me show you. Since that cutting board has a bow in it, we're going to have to plane it. But to get it plain on one side while it's already bowed, there has to be something that's already plain. So what I do is I take that piece of MDF you see right there, I run a bead of hot glue on one side, and we're going to tack it to the MDF. Now, one side only, because here the shim is going to make up for that bow. You pick up what I'm stepping down? Nope. You pick up what I'm putting down? Oh, I just screwed up that real bad, guys. Let's move on. Let's move on. So, when you use a quality hot glue, it actually adheres very, very well. And I know this might look sketchy, but I promise you, this is actually a technique that I've adapted into making brand new cutting boards now as well. And it works very well. So here you can see, we're just gonna give it a little extra across where the board is. And once it dries, it adheres quite well, is what I'm trying to say. And suddenly like that, it's time to set up the old single car garage wood shop with the old DeWalt 13-inch planer, which works pretty good. Haven't quite touched the knives yet. Give it a half turn down. There we go. And you can kind of see the brand new wood versus what has been dirtied by food materials and whatnot. and it kind of gives you a good visual representation of the bow that we're taking out. Yeah, there's a real good visualization right there. Little quality check, and now just to finish it up, we're going to do a quarter turn. There we go. We have one entirely plain side of the cutting board. Use my shop vac for a dust collector. Now watch how on there that is. I used a lot of power. Now we got to take off the residual hot glue. And for anybody cringing right now, don't worry, this is a scrap chisel. It's nothing super fancy. See my nice buck chisels on the wall there? I would never scrape glue with them. But I think I got this one at a garage sale. You can kind of see on the video, I think someone tried to heat it up before I got it. And it's just, well, it's a sacrificial chisel, if you will, at this point. Works great for scraping off glue for cutting boards and what have you. This one here, the glue worked so good right there, it actually peeled up some of the MDF, and I really had to put a little bit of elbow juice in there to get it relinquished from the cutting board. But we got there, and that's what's important, ultimately. So now that we have a plain side, we do no longer need to use the board. So dust collector on, and without the MDF board in there as a plane surface, we have to adjust the planer down a little bit because you know, we got to make a cut. It's kind of important. And you can actually cheat a little bit now that we don't have different sized widths of things. Just go ahead and measure it, and I can get an accurate height, and then we flip it on. There's our plain side. That's our bottom now, and now we're going to remove material from the other side. And you should be able to see here shortly where we're removing the material from. See? You kind of see the old material is the low side, and the brand spanking new material is the high side. And that's where we're getting our rocking pattern from. Almost there. A few more passes and we ought to be ready to move on to the next step. Look at that. 2 plain sides. Beautiful red oak from 1957. Alright. Now that we've got the bow out, kind of figured it was time for an upgrade. I'm going to use this bullnose or outer bit, and let's install a juice tray. I've grown a lot in the last couple years in my woodworking. It wasn't that I didn't know how to do this, it was that I was not comfortable enough doing this. And since the building of this cutting board in 2020, well, I've been doing a lot better. I've enjoyed making cutting boards. So what I'm doing is I have this template that I specifically cut to work with this exact router, and I'm going to use that as kind of a template to put in my juice tray. So with my measuring device, I just kind of make sure that everything is nice and centered. And to be completely honest with you, I have never found a double stick tape that works for me to the point where I'm comfortable doing this. So I use regular masking tape, and we just kind of put it on the middle like that. And then with something nice and hard that's also smooth, I burnish it on to the cutting board. Yeah, like that. I mean, you know. And then we're going to do the same thing on ye old template. So, another piece of tape. We're going to slam her on there. Try to get nice and even. And with the screwdriver, we're going to burnish it on there as well. And now, that sounded a little bit like Christopher Walken. We're going to use some Superglue. And I'm kind of cheap when it comes to my consumables. You can see I'm like really squeezing out the last of that tube, like, goodness, Daniel. And then the other side gets some accelerator. And on those lines you saw me mark, we're just gonna go ahead and try to line everything up. You got one shot at this when you're using accelerator. So get it good. And once you're happy, put all of your weight in it. Speaking of weight, oof. Maybe work in the shop more than eat pizza, dude. Goodness. Anyway, the old 2 pieces of tape and superglue trick works so well. No, I'm not lying. That I've actually been using it as like vice. Not as vice. That's a different thing. I've been using it as a vice. Like I literally use it for clamping power. So I do not burnish onto that plywood workbench with the screwdriver because it's a little more coarse and can sometimes damage the tape. We don't want to damage the tape, but it is important to burnish it on there. And then you finally grabbed a new tube of super glue. Good for you. Literally do the same thing. But now this is going to give me all my clamping force, so that when I grab my router, and we're going to plunge it just a little bit. We're not going to do the whole cut up front. This is hardwood. It's old wood. My house was built in 1957, so it's at least as old as that. And it's going to burn a little bit, maybe. If I do my job right, it won't burn, but it might burn. But if we come back with a second pass after this initial pass, you're taking off less material, and it's only going to be cutting on east and west instead of 360 degrees around. And just like that, the first pass is complete. Voila! Juice tray! You gotta love it. So now, kind of what I alluded to just but a few seconds ago, we're going to do another pass, and this is taking off less material. It's only cutting on east and west. Much more easier to manage. Highly less likelihood that it's burning anything, because I can tell you from experience, if you get the burn marks in your juice tray, you're going to be sanding for a while. And if you're like me, you don't like sanding. I don't like sanding, by the way. Yeah, there we go. Clean that up, and I'm just checking around for nice and evenness. See if I screwed anything up. And I'm also kind of deciding at this point in time, is it deep enough? Do I want to do a third pass? I don't know. Nope. We're good to go. Alright, you want to see how good the tape and glue trick works? That one came up. Still took a little bit of force. But this guy right here just is reluctant to leave. So it's a good thing I have the old garage sale deluxe chisel. Just being really cautious here. I do not want to dig into my board. That would turn this into firewood real quick. Finally, it gives up the ghost. Okay. I think now it's time for... You could probably categorize this as an unnecessary upgrade. Since I made this from scratch, and I made it out of reclaimed wood from the home that I live in, we ought to put the channel's initials in there, 'cause why not? So I just kind of, in my bold block lettering, let's throw in a TNK24, because like I mentioned, I did this last year, and I'm just now getting around to using the footage. This Dremel pencil tool is so neat. It works great for engraving things and carving things, and I've got some smaller abrasives for it that can polish and sharpen smaller tools and get in places that you really wouldn't with larger power tools. So I'm a big fan. Cool. Just gonna go ahead and get rid of any burrs that the grain might have been not so happy that it was being carved into. And just to make it stand out a little bit, because, you know, since it's on the bottom of your board, everybody's gonna see it. Listen, sometimes I do things that don't make sense. Okay? Let me have it. Just, okay? Thank you. Just a little bit of black Rust-Oleum paint, just to make my TNK24 pop a little bit. Once my black paint dries, we can go ahead and since I didn't pass kindergarten too well, couldn't keep it within the lines. Guys, I can't paint between the lines. And that's the beauty of engraving things. If you paint out of the lines, you can just let it dry and sand it off. And now all of your paint is inside the lines. So I'm a big fan of my cordless sander. I don't know what I was doing with cords for so many years. And good night, man. Are you the Riley man? Wish I was sponsored by them. Anyway, we are running out of steps to do, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm also running out of space in my single car garage shop. But I make it work. You gotta do what you gotta do with what you gotta do with. You know what I mean? So, planer goes away. And we're gonna move where the dust collector is and bust out the tabletop router table. And since we removed material from the cutting board, well, we gotta put that nice, pretty round over on it again. So here we are, just kind of making sure we're all set up. And well, I mean, you gotta make sure to dust collect as much as you can since the garage is attached to the house. You know what I mean? That just makes good sense. So put in the bigger set there, give it a test run. Everything looks good. And now nice and carefully, gonna remove a little bit of material. See? Just a little bit. It still has a little bit of a round over in it. That was original. But since we took material off, we gotta put it back in the way that it was. Just going nice and easy. Not using a lot of muscle. The router table is a really good way to lose some digits. There's one side. Go ahead and do the other side. Give it a good quality control. I like it. So we are done at the router table. But unfortunately, that brings me to my least. No. My least favorite part. Now, since we just installed this juice tray, we gotta sand it a little bit. 3M makes this sandpaper that isn't paper at all. It's like, I don't know, some kind of like saran wrap almost, but it's real flexible. It lasts forever, and it flexes around curves, whether they're ID or OD. Works great. If I can find some, I'll link it down below for anyone interested. But now that our juice tray is sanded, we can switch back to the power tools, which I'm a big fan of. And just starting from a high grit, this is probably 80, might be 120. We'll go ahead and give it a good sand. And since this is a random orbital sander, I don't have to really pay attention too awful much about which way I'm going. It's kind of like cheating. Like the woodworkers of yesteryear are probably looking down on us going, I cannot believe I was born when we had to do this all by hand. And we had to follow the grain. And I can't believe it. Sorry, Grandpa. Once I'm happy with that grit, switch down to a smaller grit. This is probably 180, if I remember correctly. And wow, I can sand fast. like lightning fast. There's that super cool, super flexible sandpaper again. And go ahead and that is 220. Gonna go ahead and hammer out my edges real quick. Just like that. We've sanded it. I might have misjudged what I went. I go to 220. That's my rule of thumb. And then it's time, a little bit of food grade white mineral oil for finishing. And look how pretty. This is one of the most easiest finishes to apply on anything, whether it's supposed to be used for food or not. Super durable, keeps moisture out. It's a pretty good sealant. All you gotta do is pour it on, and then with a clean rag, I like to use a microfiber, kind of spread it around, and then when you go to, I'd call it kind of a polish, just like you would your car. You're gonna kind of go around in circular patterns, and what that does is you're just gonna work it into the grain patterns. Now this is all face glued, so you have edge grain, which is more durable, on top where your knife will be actually doing all the action. There's the end grain. That turned out really pretty, just wait till the end. We go around and don't believe that I recorded it, but this got 2 or 3 coats. I believe that I just filmed the very first coat, because actually if you film the second and third coat, it's more of the same, but without the cool transition from raw wood to shiny finished beautiful red oak. But yeah, guys, check this out. A few days later, and the red hue comes back. No filters needed. A beautiful reclaimed red oak cutting board with juice tray, and even includes some quarter sawn, beautiful end grain on the sides. This has been my absolute battle axe, my favorite cutting board of all of the ones I've ever made. Since this project, I have dubbed this the TNK Classic. I've been considering making a batch of these and perhaps selling them on my Etsy store. Beautiful. A testament to everything I make from scratch. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Be well.